We are continuing in this idea of the development of spiritual consciousness. We know now that spiritual consciousness itself is the opposite of our usual mode of life. It is the opposite of all that we have been taught from infancy, because it is a reversal of the idea of substance. In the human world, substance is that which we can see, feel, touch, handle. That is why so much effort is made in life to acquire money or property or merchandise, because the world value is placed in money, merchandise, property. That's what wars are fought over. That's what political elections are held over. That is what this eternal struggle is in trying to own a business or create a monopoly, only for the purpose of acquiring money or property or merchandise. All the thousands of years that this has been going on, the world hasn't learned that even after you acquire it, you have no assurance of being able to hold on to it. Or even after you acquire it, whether it is going to buy for you the things that you hope to get. Now really, even a gross materialist doesn't work for money for the sake of getting the money. Even the gross materialist believes that the money will buy something called satisfaction, pleasure, security, peace of mind. There is no such thing as a person that ever lived that believed that money in and of itself was valuable, or even that gold was valuable, because even the man who owns the gold mine isn't satisfied to keep the gold. He has to translate it into some other substance. Everyone believes, everyone who struggles for money, believes that in its acquisition they can trade it, or some of it, for those things called peace of mind, satisfaction, health, whatnot. It is the same with those who gourmandize in the matter of food. It isn't the food in and of itself they care about. Always in connection with the eating of that food or overindulgence in it or drink is the belief, the conviction that the indulgence in that food or drink will bring satisfaction, peace of mind, joy. I bring this out so that you may see that no matter what basis the materialist works from, no matter what he appears to be working for, his ultimate idea is not matter. His ultimate idea is exchanging that matter for the very thing that we are seeking. Peace of mind, satisfaction, joy, harmony, health, wholeness. Where we differ, where the materialist differs from those of spiritual vision, is that the materialist believes he first must accumulate the matter and then exchange it for the spiritual value. And in that he fails. The person of spiritual vision does not believe that these spiritual qualities can be purchased with money or property or merchandise, but rather has come to the realization that they come from some fountain within his own being, that they have actually nothing to do with money, that a person may have absolutely no money and have more peace of mind, more satisfaction, more joy than the person with all the money in the world to spend for it. It isn't exactly a good illustration, but at least in a measure it illustrates it. We have a man in Hollywood called Peter the Hermit. He's probably the happiest man on earth. At least if he's ever had a moment of unhappiness, nobody has ever witnessed it. And if he's ever had a moment of disease, nobody has ever heard him speak of it or complain of it. Materially, he has nothing. In fact, he hasn't even got two of anything, including a shirt. He won't have two of anything except shoes, and he needs two to make the pair. He doesn't wear those too often either, mostly in bare feet. He goes to extremes in that direction. He won't even permit enough food in his cabin for tomorrow. No food is ever carried over from one day to the next. If there's any food left over today, he carries it out to somebody that he thinks has less than he has. And he starts each morning with no food and no money, and then lives on that day. Whatever of joy or peace or satisfaction he's finding in the world, then, he's finding not through exchanging money for it or property. He's finding it within his own being. Now, here's where we go in our evolution from material sense to spiritual consciousness. We learn, first of all, and we learn through an experience, not because it says so in anybody's book, but we learn through experience that there is an invisible substance. Some people call it God. Some people call it spirit, soul, consciousness. The name isn't important. There is an invisible substance within our own being, and out of it the good things of life are formed. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Because we don't understand too well the meaning of the word faith, we sometimes translate that. Consciousness is the substance of things hoped for. Consciousness. Consciousness, spirit or soul, is the substance of things hoped for, and out of this soul of your being and of mine, out of our soul, comes the issues of life, the good things of life. The harmony, the peace, the joy, the prosperity, the success, the satisfaction. Now, those who have gone through life, most of us have, certainly I have through half of it, seeking the satisfactions, joys, peace, prosperity, and health in the outer realm, already know what an unthankful job it is and how unsatisfactory the process is and to what degree we fail. That is why we are here. That is why anybody is ever here where I'm speaking, because they have found that seeking their good in the outer world hasn't produced that which they sought. And now they either have discovered that this inner realm has the secret, or they are at least seeking to find out if it will be so for them. Yesterday, we took the infinite way, 97 to 103, as a practice, a mental discipline in realizing the presence of God. Now, we're going to continue that for as long as you possibly can. The more you do it, the more you follow those pages and put them into practice, the sooner you will bring about the realization of the presence of the substance we call consciousness, life, or soul, spirit. But today I want to add to that. I don't want to replace it, remember. I want to add to it. If I keep on adding and adding until you find that you have to neglect your housework and your family, that won't be any harm. Let's neglect them for a while. Maybe they'll appreciate us more when we get back. Meantime, it won't do any harm, even if we have to neglect our business for a while, because this is really worthwhile. It's Ponce de Leon, wasn't it, who sought for the fountain of youth? And he left everything in the world just to find that fountain. He didn't find it. We have found it. And he would have found it if he'd have just searched a little further. But he thought it was in Florida. It's in our own consciousness. And lots of fellows have gone to the Klondike for gold. And it isn't there either. In our own consciousness. And as well as these men could raise thousands of dollars to go on their search, we can afford to neglect a few of our human duties and tasks to engage in this search. And so I'm going to add to it. And in adding to it, if it startles you a little bit at first, you might have to take my word for this until you've tried it for yourself. If you try it faithfully, you will find a difference in your bodies in much less than a week's time. The world belief is that food nourishes us, that certain foods nourish us. Certain foods provide certain elements and substances of the body. And according to the material standard of life, there's no doubt that that's true. Let us not believe for a moment that in the human picture, when they tell us that vitamin A does this and vitamin B does that, it actually does. And when they tell us that we require so many calories for this and so many calories for that, it's probably true. And in many cases, it actually works. In the same way that aspirin, 99 times out of 100, will relieve a headache. It'd be foolish for us, even as students of truth, to deny that on the human plane, aspirin does its work, and vitamins does its work, and minerals do their work, calories do their work. But now, if they were doing their work perfectly, functioning perfectly for us, we probably would not be looking for something higher and better. Now, here we go. the food you eat does not nourish you, nor do your digestive organs digest, nor do your eliminative organs eliminate. Because in and of themselves, the organs and functions of the body can't move, can't operate, can't do a thing. They would be like my hand here. My hand here, left to itself, is just going to stay there forever and forever and forever. There has to be something called I, to say I move it, I raise it, I lower it. This hand in and of itself can't punch or pet. It has no way of determining whether to punch or pet or even how. But there is something called I that determines whether it will punch or pet, or whether it will remain here, or whether it will move. So that I really am the law under this hand. I am the activity of this hand, since in and of itself it can't even move. There it remains. I am the activity of this hand, and I am the intelligence of this hand. I am the law under this hand. I am the motive power under this hand. Matter of fact, I'm just about all there is under this hand. Without me, this hand is nothing and can do nothing and can be nothing. I give it its power. I give it direction. I give it all that it could ever have or ever be. Now then, there's no difference between that and the heart and the liver and the lungs. No difference between that and the digestive organs or eliminative organs. And if you think for a moment that the digestive organs can digest separate and apart from your direction, you have failed to see that the body in and of itself is just a dead piece of flesh. It has nothing in and of itself. It is nothing in and of itself. There is an I that governs and controls the entire situation. Oh, I suppose many of you have had the experience of being in love sometime or other. And so you know what it means to touch the body, the hand, or of the one you love. You know the sensation you get from it? Well, now, is that sensation in the hand or body, or is it in you? If the sensation were in the hand, then any time we touch anybody, we would have the same sensation, but we don't. This hand could touch almost anybody in this room, and it would just be hand touching hand, that's all. But let this hand touch the one, and then see what happens. Ah, it's almost electricity. It's vital. It's alive. It's real. But that has nothing to do with the hand. That has to do with me. That has to do with my identity. That has to do with my relationship with the world. Every organ and function of the body responds the same way. It has sensation in one direction, it has none in another. To one it responds to ice cream, to another it doesn't. To one it responds to chocolate candy, to another it doesn't. What doesn't? The body? No. It's that which constitutes I, me. That's what responds to ice cream or chocolate or people. I, me. I determine that. Now then, because human belief, universally accepted, has said that the issue of your life is in your heart, or in the liver, or the kidneys, or the digestive organs, or the eliminative organs, we have become victims of that belief. We have become victims, and then we say, my heart doesn't function. Or we say, my kidneys, or my liver, or my digestive organs, or my eliminative organs, they don't function. We might just as well say, my hand punches everybody it sees, as if my hand had such a power. It hasn't. My hand is completely obedient to direction from me. Now you begin with this day, and at least 2 or 3 times every day, begin to realize that the soul of you, the intelligence of you, the life of you, which is at the center of your being, is governing and controlling your body. That your body isn't controlling you, but you are controlling your body. That there is a soul at the center of your being. There is a soul, a spirit, or consciousness, and that its function is to animate your body, to be the law under your body, to be the substance of it, and the activity of it, and the intelligence of it. And its function is to govern your body intelligently and harmoniously, and not only that, but eternally. Not just to 80 years and 10, but on to 120 or 30 or 40 or 50, if you like. There's no limit to the length of time that our body will function, except the limit of universal belief that we accept. Now, it takes practice, discipline, just as it does to practice the presence of God, as it's outlined on those pages in the Infinite Way. Just as it takes practice to practice the presence of God, so it takes practice to get used to the idea that your body doesn't determine your life, and that the actions and functions of your body do not determine your health, but rather that the issues of health are determined by your soul, by your spirit, by your consciousness, and that it is your consciousness that animates, governs, and controls the organs and functions of your body. Now, it takes time to make that transition, because for hundreds of years, thousands of years, we have been living under the universal belief that the body can talk back to us and tell us whether we're going to be healthy or sick, or whether we're going to live long or not, or whether we're going to function properly while we're here. And we have been trained to saying, my head aches me, or my heart pains me, so forth and so on. Whereas we now must make the transition into spiritual consciousness, which is the Christ teaching. What did hinder you? Rise, pick up your bed and walk. In other words, can paralyzed muscles keep you from walking? No, Jesus said. Rise, pick up your bed and walk. It can't hinder you at all. Why can't it hinder you? Because there is that at the center of your being which is called God, or soul, or consciousness, or spirit, or mind, which is the principle of life, the principle of your body, the law under your body, the substance and harmony under your body, and even the eternality and immortality of your body and of your mind. Now, one of the major things that seems to throw our bodies off kilter, off balance, is food, and the claim that it has power over us. I'm sure you've all seen the food frying and boiling and broiling in the pan, and it's kind of foolish to look at it and think that it has so much power over us. Actually, it hasn't. There again, it has been the belief handed down to us through generations that the nutritive value, the nourishment value of food is in the food. Now I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to change your whole body too, and may change your appetite. The nourishment value of your food is in your soul, in your consciousness, not out there in the food at all. You first have to impart to that food its nourishment value before it nourishes you, and first you have to give it its power to harm you before it can harm you. We've all done that from childhood by saying, this doesn't agree with me or that doesn't agree with me, and so I won't eat it, or if I do eat it, it'll upset me. If I take coffee at night, it'll keep me awake. I remember one time over in Fifth Church in Hollywood, a woman got up and gave a testimony in Christian Science Church about the fact that never in her life could she drink coffee. It kept her awake, but now since she's studying Christian Science, she can drink all the coffee she wants and it doesn't keep her awake. Of course, they're not supposed to drink coffee, but she didn't know that. The point is that we can empower coffee to keep us awake. It's a strange thing that the opposite that's true in my household. My wife and I, when I'm home, are up 4 and 5 times a night with a pot of coffee going all night long, and we're drinking it all night long. And as fast as we take coffee, we can fall right to sleep. Just the way you put your belief into it, that's all. What is one man's meat is another man's poison. That has been said a long, long time, and it's true. Now then, I give you this as an unfoldment that came to me in my own work, that the food we eat does not nourish us, but that the consciousness, the soul at the center of my being gives it its value and imparts to that food the nourishment value that I'm to derive from it. And therefore, all food that I take is good. And if it has any qualities of world belief that isn't good, it can do no harm, since my consciousness doesn't empower it to be harm. And in and of itself, it has no harm, and is not harm. Now you try this, those of you that would like. Try before eating 3 times a day or as many times as you eat to realize that whatever of value there is in this food that I'm eating comes from my own consciousness. My own consciousness imparts to this food its value. And it draws out of this food whatever is necessary for the maintenance and sustenance of my body in health and in harmony. And here's what happens. Just as sooner or later you must do this with money, sooner or later you must do it with food, sooner or later you must do it with the organs and functions of the body. As you come to spiritual consciousness, you learn this great lesson, that nothing out here in this world of effect is power. Nothing and nobody is power. All power is in God at the center of my being. All power is in God. And that God at the center of my being imparts to my bones and blood and flesh, and to my food, and to my weather and climate, all of the energies and powers that they finally have in and on me. Once you pass from the belief that there is something external to you that has power over you, to the realization of the truth that all power is given unto me, that all power is derived from God, and that whether it's the organs and functions of the body, whether it's the food you eat, whether it's the climate or weather outside, that it is your consciousness, God, the soul of your being, that determines its good in your experience. When you have done that, you have passed into spiritual consciousness, in which you no longer look out there for your good, but you look to this great power within your own being for your good, and then when it appears outwardly as food, transportation, home, you enjoy it. You don't become an ascetic and deny it and throw it away, but you enjoy it. You enjoy it knowing that whatever of good it has, whatever of joy, whatever of pleasure, whatever of satisfaction or substance or nourishment has come from your soul, from the divine within you. And so also, you will not look to friends for your companionship. You will realize this, that this soul power at the center of your being will appear outwardly in your friendship. And so you'll never have occasion to be disappointed in a friend, because humanly, those that are friends today can be enemies tomorrow. That couldn't be true if we were realizing that our friends in and of themselves can't be friends or enemies. Only the God power at the center of our being gives them the power of friendship unto us. Only the God power at the center of our being makes it possible for me to say that which you understand and for you to understand that which I say. If there wasn't a God power at the center of our being, you would never understand this, and I would never be able adequately to express it. It's because there is one soul, one mind, functioning here as all of us, that makes it possible for this to be intelligible and intelligent. So it is. If food had a power of its own outside of the God who made it, now wouldn't we be in a real mess? Then we would be in trouble. If food or weather or climate had a power of its own, separate and apart from the God that made it, it would be in trouble. And there is the secret of the mystical life. There is the secret of the spiritual life. That's the secret revealed by Jesus when he says, I have meat ye know not. You could ask me for water, and I can give you water that would spring up into life eternal. I am the wine, I am the bread. That is the reason why at the three temptations, when he was an hungered, and the temptation came to him to give a good metaphysical treatment and turn the stone into bread, he said, no, none of that for me. I'm not interested in food on the outside. Get thee behind me, Satan. I'm not making any miracles around here. Knowing that at the center of his own being was the God power that had to feed him and sustain him. And when it got ready to bring bread to him, the bread would be there. He wouldn't have to turn around and make a demonstration about it. God at the center of his being would produce it. That's the secret of all of those three temptations. There was no call for Jesus to jump off a cliff to prove that his life was eternal and that he had a God to sustain him. God was sustaining him up on top. Why jump off the cliff? He was satisfied where he was. He was being sustained. That was all that was necessary. He didn't have to prove it. It was going on. We don't have to prove anything. Life is going on for us. We have no right to try to prove it. And in proportion, as you realize that this life, which is your life, is self-sustained and self-maintained, you will make less effort to prolong it, less effort to improve it, and then you'll find it taking care of itself. I don't know if I have been here since that story came to me about hydrogen. Did I tell you the story about hydrogen? There was one of the professors working on this nuclear fission project, and he was to address a group of scientists, physicists, on some new phase of the experiment. And he started off by saying to them that, I know that there are some of you misguided gentlemen who still believe in God. But he said, I must tell you that for you to understand this experiment and these higher experiments in nuclear fission, you must understand that there is no God. And not only must you understand it, but you must realize this. I'm not telling it to you from a religious standpoint. I'm telling you from the standpoint that I have proven in the laboratory that there is no God, and you can drop all that nonsense right here now. He said, I have proven that everything that exists in this world is formed of hydrogen. Everything there is a form of hydrogen. It's hydrogen in some form or shape or manner. Hydrogen and nothing but hydrogen. There's nothing existing that isn't composed of hydrogen. So one of the scientists looked up and said to him, but Professor, where did the hydrogen come from? Oh, he said, that's self-created and self-sustained. Oh, this answer. I thought that was God. But it so happens that this professor stood stock still and said, you are right. Whatever name you give it, if it's self-maintained and self-sustained, self-created, it's the infinite. And he was converted himself right there, this professor. Yes, there is a God, if by God you mean that which created itself, that which sustains itself unto eternity, then there is a God. And the truth is that everything that exists is a form of God, or a form of hydrogen, or a form of a self-created, self-maintained substance by any name that you want to give it. Now then, we are not going to let that professor beat us at our own game. If he can understand that there is a self-created and self-maintained substance, he understands also then that the substance of all forms must be eternal and immortal and governed by that same self-created and self-maintaining principle or substance, and we have to agree with that. We have to agree that the organs and functions of the body, or the food we eat, or the air we breathe, or the rain that falls, or the snow, or the wind, is of that self-created and self-maintained substance and activity, which we call God and he calls hydrogen. And because of that, there is no evil in it. Now remember, and there you come to the highest law of mysticism, which is the highest law of Jesus Christ's teaching. And that is that there is only one power in this universe, and that there is nothing evil. You can make anything evil by thinking it so. That is, you can make it evil in your experience. But that doesn't say that it is in itself and of itself evil. On the contrary, if you can posit a principle of a self-created and a self-sustaining infinite substance, then you must logically go the next step and say that it's the only substance. And if it's self-created and self-maintained, it must be good, or it couldn't last eternally and immortally. And if it is good in any form in which it appears. Now, the fact that Adam called some things good and some things evil have nothing to do with us. We are dealing now not with the law of Moses, but we are dealing with the grace which came through Christ Jesus, which is the understanding of one power. Everything, then, that goes into your system, and probably that is why we are told that it's not what goes in the mouth that's harmful, but that which comes out. You know, of course, how very religious the ancient Hebrews were, and the Orthodox Hebrews of today, about the food that goes into their mouths. They're very, very particular, and certain foods the Orthodox Hebrews will never take into their system. And of course, you all remember that Peter revealed for once and all that that's entirely wrong, that Hebraic belief that there are good foods and bad foods, when he had the dream and was told by God to call nothing bad that God made. Now, we must take a lesson from that experience. And remember, nothing in this world is evil. No matter who names it so, and no matter under what guise, nothing in this world is evil, because everything that exists was formed of that one basic, self-created and self-maintained substance. Therefore, everything that exists is a form or formation of that substance. And that substance we call God, or soul, or spirit, or life, or principle, or law, and is closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. It's right within you. The kingdom of God is within you, and it becomes the law then. To the organs and functions of your body, it becomes the law under the food that you eat, and it is that substance and that law at the center of you which is the only nourishment that food can have. You see, ordinarily when we eat, we take in not the food, but we take in the world belief about the food. That some of it is fattening, and some of it is thinning, and some of it is good for us, and some of it is bad for us. And every time we eat a morsel, we eat with that morsel the world belief about that morsel. Now it becomes necessary, since no change takes place in our life except through the activity of our own consciousness, it becomes necessary that we consciously deny the error and affirm the truth. In other words, that we consciously realize every time we eat that the substance of you, the activity of you and me, is derived from God at the center of my being, and you can respond to no other thought or thing. And that I impart to you the activity and the nourishment and the satisfaction and the taste and the pleasure of this food, and that I, consciousness, soul, spirit, at the center of my being, gives unto the organs and functions of my body their capacity to digest or eliminate or whatever else the body is supposed to do. Now, you are transferring consciously all power from the outer world and placing it where it really belongs, within you. The kingdom of God, of all power, is within you. Dominion has been given to you by God over everything that exists. But you must consciously take possession of that dominion instead of saying, oh no, this out here has dominion over me. You have to consciously now come back to the center of your being and realize that weeks and months probably until it becomes automatic. After that, you see, the first few months of this study is very difficult. It's a lot of mental discipline to remember where power is and how power was derived, what real substance is. Every time we're tempted to think in terms of money and money values, we have to consciously translate it and realize, no, the power of substance and supply is within me, not within dollar bills. It's within me. If it was within dollar bills, a dollar bill would always buy the same thing. It doesn't. Now let's realize this. The power of supply is within me. The consciousness, the soul of me determines my supply, not the dollar bills outside. In every wise, we learn for months and months and months to translate the human belief into the spiritual truth or reality. There's no getting away from it, and there's no way of avoiding the responsibility. Nobody can make this demonstration for you. It is possible to go to a practitioner, and because of the practitioner's realization of this truth, it can change the power of the food over you today or tomorrow or next month. And it can do wonders for you in many ways. But then remember, the time comes when you're back under your own belief again, under your own conviction, and you've got to go about this thing in your own way. No one of us can avoid the responsibility. Jesus could be a wayshore, but he couldn't take you into heaven. It just couldn't be done. We have in old theology the belief, of course, that because he died, we don't have to pay for our sins. I don't know, I suppose in a room like this there aren't any sinners or people who've committed sins, and so you probably don't know. But I'll tell you from my sins that I pay for my own, and I have paid. And if any of you ever decide to sin, you're going to pay too. And the fact that Jesus was crucified isn't going to save you. You're going to pay. Why? Because if you accept the belief that 2 times 2 are 5, it's your checkbook that's going to be wrong. And not all the Jesus Christ or Einsteins in the world can save it. None. Whatever belief you accept unto yourself, you pay the penalty for until that belief is corrected. And if you accept the belief that coffee is going to keep you awake, believe me, you're going to stay awake. And there's no use calling on Jesus Christ to set that aside for you. No, whatever of good comes into our consciousness has got to come through the activity of our consciousness in accepting the truth and rejecting a universally believed lie. That's the way it's done. That's how it's accomplished. And that's why the Master could say, if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. Because he couldn't go on making the demonstration forever for his students, for his disciples, or for the people. Remember, he only fed them 3 times. Why? Because he knew there was no use trying to feed them forever. The day'd come when he wouldn't be there, and they'd be so used to leaning on him, they never would know how to get out and get food for themselves. And so he left them to learn this principle or not. Well, they didn't. Now we are learning a principle that should have been taught throughout these past 2,000 years so that there would be no need for our being here today to learn it. As there will be no need for your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren to learn them if you will accept the responsibility of teaching them that all power is given to us from God, that we were given dominion, and that dominion exists in the fact that there is a life, consciousness, soul, or spirit at the center of our being, and it functions through us to this so-called outer world, and it governs and controls every circumstance of our experience. So for an exercise, in these days and weeks to come, why not join me, because I use it consciously. I remember consciously every day that God at the center of my being is the law of my experience, and it governs my every experience. God at the center of my being is the law of my friendships, the law of love unto me. God at the center of my being is the substance and the nourishment of the food that I eat. God at the center of my being is the law and the activity unto every organ and function of my body. God at the center of my being is the law of weather, the law of climate, and is the activity of the weather and the activity of the climate. And this God, the center of my being, which is the law and the substance and the reality of my being, the principle of my being, it draws unto me everything necessary for my good. It really acts as a law of elimination to everything not necessary to my spiritual unfoldment and development. It isn't much, but it is something to remember 3 times a day, that all power is at the center of our being, vested in our own consciousness, in our own soul, and that our own soul is the substance of our bodies, and the substance of our food, and the substance of our weather, the substance of our climate, the substance of our friendship, and of our family relationships. Soul is that. God is that. God is the substance, the law, the activity, and the reality of all that concerns us, but only in proportion as we know the truth can this truth make us free. The truth doesn't make us free. Knowing the truth enables the truth to make us free. It is the knowing of truth, or an activity of our own consciousness, substituting truth for universal belief, that makes it operative in our experience. We live as human beings under the laws of belief. Everything that the world says about us, every law that Materia Medica has set down, even those, remember, that 10 years from now they'll tell us weren't laws at all, they were mistaken. Even those are operating as laws in human experience right now. Even though they're fiction, they operate as laws. Just as Santa Claus operates as a law unto the child. A real law, too. Until you come along and tell them that Santa Claus is a fiction. Then Santa Claus doesn't function for them anymore. And so it is, these laws of Materia Medica, laws of food, laws of climate, they're really Santa Claus experiences in our life. They are non-existent powers, non-existent beings, but they operate as real until we consciously eliminate the belief and exchange it for a truth. And that no one can do for you except temporarily. That's why you can have healings from practitioners, but you can't have your life made over. Only you can make your life over, and the way of it is to give up these beliefs as fast as you discover their beliefs and come to the realization that here, I determine what this hand will do. And that I is God, the center of my being. That is the substance and soul of my being, and it is governing this hand, so that I don't even have to consciously give it any orders and tell it what to do. It's always obedient to the soul at the center of my being. I don't have to tell it not to steal other people's wallets. And the reason I don't is because there is a soul at the center of my being governing that for me. I don't have to tell it. All I have to know is that soul is governing it, then I don't have to tell it what to do. I don't even have to tell God how much money I need. All I have to know is that this soul at the center of my being is providing for me all necessary to my unfoldment and development. That's all. That's all. And I don't have to do it for its sake. I have to do it for my sake, because I've been educated to the opposite belief, that I must be the go-getter. I must be the one to go out and get the money. I know now it isn't true. There is that at the center of my being which provides for every occasion. And it does it without my taking thought for what I shall eat, drink, or wherewithal I shall be clothed. Now this is the transition from material sense to spiritual sense, and it is what Paul called dying daily. Every day you whittle away some world belief and substitute some activity of truth until you come to the day of his great revelation, wherein he said, I live, yet not I. Christ liveth in me. When you get to that place, you have reached the ultimate of achievement, the ultimate of spiritual living, where you yourself do not have to take thought. There is something at the center always doing these things for you, bringing the right food to you to eat, rejecting the wrong, digesting, eliminating, bringing your right friendships to you, taking those from you that have no part in your experience, bringing the right opportunities to you, seeing that you don't take advantage of the wrong opportunities. Always there is something at the center of your being so that you say, heavens, I'm not living my own life anymore. That's right, you're not. It has taken over, and it lives. Just as you can say, I'm not digesting my food. You're right, you're not. It is digesting it. You have no conscious thought in the matter, but you don't have to take conscious thought for any other phase of your life either. You let it take over, and then you understand, Paul, I live, yet not I. Christ liveth as me. Christ is the life made, and I've just been there watching what it does. Clear? I hope. All right, let's meditate a few minutes.